So I have a long history of playing MMORPGs. Since online gaming was pretty much a commonplace thing, I've played MMOs. Back in the days where you had to pay for internet by the hour, from playing Neopets after school, to Estonia 3, to MapleStory, and many games between and thereafter. And one of the things about these kinds of games that has always fascinated me was the eventual shutdown of their servers. It is inevitable that with time, attention and love dwindles for a game, and as people stop coming through the door, the company behind it decides to pull the plug and shut up shop for the last time. The most interesting thing about it for me though was the way in which some of these games shut down. Games like Tabula Rasa, a sci-fi MMORPG that shut down their servers by having the entire universe in which the game is contained obliterated. And I'm being serious, the developers set the destruction of the world on a timer basically. They had aliens invade the game in increasingly quick waves, and what few players there were left had the final experience of fighting, however futile, for their survival, until eventually the aliens they were fighting had overrun everything and the servers were taken offline. And over the past few days, I've just been looking over videos of the final moments of these games, the one last hurrah from players gathered in major cities, saying their goodbyes, and it made me sad. Not because the games had shut down, because a lot of these games I never had the experience of playing, but how I feel like when it comes to MOBA games like League of Legends and stuff, I don't really think many of us will experience such a level of community as these players feel in the face of the shutdown of a game that they've poured years of their life into. So, let me rewind a bit, because today I want to talk to you guys about the death of a MOBA game. I think as long as the concept of the fan has existed, there has always been fanboys and flame wars between opposing fandoms over which piece of the world is the superior product. PlayStation versus Xbox, Horde versus Alliance, Homestuck versus their parents. Hell, even back in the caveman days, I'm fully certain that back then there was flame wars over which caveman drew the best stick figure with a spear on the wall with their own turds. Humans just seem that way inclined, that they love to be passionate about something. People love to get behind something 100% and just assume that everything else is heresy. And it's of absolutely no surprise to anyone that those kinds of flame wars managed to find their way into the MOBA community. For a good few years of my channel, I was really terrified to even mention Dota or Dota 2 for fear of being absolutely obliterated by League of Legends fans who thought of Dota 2 not as a game that was in the same genre, bringing more people into this new genre of game that we all share together, but as heathens taking players away from the best game. They're killing our video games, guys. As time has gone on though, I like to think that in the 5 odd years that I've been making videos, I've grown up, and maybe some of you guys, you know, you might have been younger when you started playing League, but you're adults now, and I like to think that, or I'd like to imagine that most of you are rationally thinking humans who can understand that you can like a whole mess of things, even if those things are competitors to each other technically. Since having this realization though, I've made quite a few videos on the things that I think Valve does really well for Dota 2, that I think Riot could really latch onto, and I also disclosed my life-crippling addiction to tower defense games. So rewind back to 2016, I ended up checking out this game in America from a company I hadn't heard much from in years, and I'm thrown into this studio with all these really passionate people, all of whom are so desperately excited to show us this new video game. And we all know that, you know, excitement is really infectious, and I'm getting hyped to play this new game, and finally, after all of the hubbub and all the bells and whistles are wheeled out, we finally sit down to play this game for a couple of hours, and it's just meh. And this game was called Paragon. Now don't get me wrong, the art style was gorgeous, it looked fantastic, but as far as gameplay was concerned, it was bland. It just wasn't what I was expecting. But the thing was, I have always been in the minds that competition is a good thing, and I truly believe that competition makes you better, and especially when you are a consumer, it is great to have choice. Now, League of Legends has been a game that for a pretty long time, I had suspected of getting lazy. They had spent a long time, possibly too long, at the top, that honestly, They didn't even have to try and come out with anything too fancy anymore because everybody was already playing their game. But now that things are kind of sloping downwards in the West, I'm starting to see some of the sparks of people trying to get themselves fired back into high gear to bring it all back round. And I wanted that for Paragon. I wanted it to succeed. I wanted competition. I wanted a competitor and an extra choice that would make everything better. Smite, Paragon, Dota 2, Dawngate, Heroes of the Storm, Strife, hell, even Awesomenauts. These were all games that I saw and I thought were cool, and I really wanted them all to do well in their own rights and bring lots of people into the genre of MOBAs. And eventually, you know, you play one shooter, you might love it. The next week you try a different shooter and you love that even more. And I thought that that might be the same thing for MOBA games as well. Somebody plays Heroes of the Storm, they don't like the idea that everybody levels at the same time, so they think, oh, League of Legends sounds okay. They end up loving that even more, and I thought it would be a surefire thing. But with MOBAs, it was weird, and especially with online gaming, when a game dies, it's a different type of death. It's a sad kind of death. There's a famous poet by an author, T.S. Eliot, called The Hollow Man, that has a really famous couple of lines that you've probably heard before. This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but a whimper. And it's honestly so painfully perfect at summarizing the way a game like Paragon ends up going out, just slowly having updates further and fewer apart until eventually nothing. And then the final nail where they announce the shutdown of the servers. Back before this kind of gaming existed, before this culture of only online services existed, and before it was more profitable to make a multiplayer game rather than a single player one, the game pretty much went nuts from beginning to end with their ideas, because there was no guarantee that there would ever be a sequel on the table. So it was either go hard with everything that you have now, or go home kicking yourself for not putting as much into your game as possible. And when those games got shut down, it was sudden. But we still had these full, weighty projects to, at the very least, look back on, and they can just be enjoyed on their own. I still go back through and play some of my favorite games of my childhood to this day, from the PS1/PS2 era. You know, like Time Splitters 1 to 3, Hogs of War, Blood Omen 2 were like just some of the games that I really, really adored back in the day, but they just kind of went dark. Now, although to be fair, Blood Omen 2 is technically a prequel, and to be fair, it did kind of get a spiritual successor in that weird MOBA game, MOBA style game, Nosgoth, that looked promising but was horrible and pay to win. I don't want to talk about that game anymore, so let's just move on. I mean, even these games that have these physical releases that people can still look back on, there's probably not that many fans left who actually care about it. When was the last time you heard anyone talk about any of those 3 games that I listed? I mean, have you even heard of any of them besides maybe Time Splitters? So tell me, in a year's time, who's going to remember Paragon? Who's going to remember Dawngate, if you even ever heard of it? Who is going to remember any of these games that have been discontinued in the last 5 years that were MMOs? I haven't even heard of 90% of them, but I've got a feel for the people that really poured hours into these games, because that's the kind of commitment that these games demand of you. They want you to pour hundreds of hours into them to get good at them, and then they're just shut down. People love these games, and then they were gone, and because there are no private servers or anything like that, the game is essentially a world locked and bolted behind a door that they're never going to step through again. Now, I give Riot an awful lot of flack for their decisions, more than pretty much any YouTuber or streamer, or anybody really dedicated to the game, but god damn, have they stood the test of time so far. But I think none of us are under any kind of illusion, and when the game finally does come to a close, 5 years, 10 years from now, I'm hoping that maybe before it all comes crashing down, maybe when you read about League of Legends shutting down on the internet like 10 years from now off some website, you might remember this video, and maybe we'll meet in game for one last time to play a few games before we go back onto our adult lives and give it the send-off that it deserves. But it's kind of sad because when League does eventually shut down, and you know, I'm obviously gonna, many years down the line, have to have a couple extra final games to pay my respects and really see the community come back in strength and send it off. I know that I'm kind of limited to only 9 other people in the game. And I know that sounds really, really bizarre because obviously the games are only 5v5 and how on earth would you have any other players, but the thing that makes me sad about the whole MMO shutting down is just the sheer number of people that you see gathered together, sharing their sorrow and sharing good times and all just being really upset and sad together. And it's just this level of camaraderie and community that I just feel like League of Legends, or any MOBA game for that matter, is ever really going to have. And I'm not really sure where I ever wanted to go with this video, I'll be honest, and I'm sorry if it seems super rambly, because it is, there's no doubt about it. I just think that it makes me a little bit sad. Here League is, this piece of the world that took over my life, this thing that changed my life, and maybe in 20 years or something, when I have kids who are old enough to game, there will be nothing to show them apart from videos and stories. And I really hope that even if you guys never played Paragon, even if you guys played it, you didn't like it, it's never a good thing when one of your competitors goes bust. It's really not good for anything. And I hope that maybe you guys are a little bit sad as well when it comes to Paragon shutting down. League of Legends has probably got a good few years left in it, and I really hope it does. I hope it goes on for as long as possible. But when the day does come though, I will be there to send it off. Because this is the way the world ends. Not with a bang, but a whimper. ピンク酢の酒を届けに行くよ今日か明日かとよいの夢手を振る影にもう会えないよ Hey guys, thank you very much for watching this video. Sorry there's not been a video in the last few days, but as you can imagine, I've been writing the script for this and getting everything sorted on top of working on the next Why I Hate and a side project which I'll be, I guess, revealing fairly soon. If you did like this video, then I'd like to think that you'll like the side project that I'm working on. Not to give any spoilers, but it's very much kind of video essay, just talking about stuff in highly scripted, edited ways. And yeah, if you're new to the channel as well, feel free to drop a subscribe or like the video if you want to see more of this kind of content where it's just thoughts and stuff like that. Really show your support. I love you guys. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.